Hey guys, thank you for joining me today. Um, I'm gonna say before we get into the verses, because we're actually gonna do two today. I know lately we've been doing one at a time, but the reason why we're doing two today is because there's a comma, and when there's a comma, we gotta keep reading. And to be honest with you, again, this is going to talk about death. Except for this time, it's going to talk about not only death of a husband, but death of children, of sons. And if you've gone through this, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that you had to go through this. I've never gone through it, but I know people who have lost their children. It doesn't matter what age they are. It doesn't matter. It's still very painful. And I understand that. And like I said, I am so sorry. But if we hold on, if we give it a moment, we will see the blessing. We will see the tides turning. But we've got to get through this part. And isn't that a huge part of life? Is that unfortunately sometimes we have to get through the hard to see the blessing. And so let's jump in. Let's look at verses 4 and 5 and let's deep dive into what it means, because sometimes when we can look through someone else's eyes, we can kind of see it in a different way. So I'm hoping that I am going to do this justice, and I'm hoping that I can be sympathetic, because I really am, and I can explain this in a way where it may help someone. And that's the whole point of all of this. So we're in Ruth chapter 1, verse 4 and verse 5. The two sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Orpah, and the other married a woman named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Milion and Kilion died. This left Naomi alone without her two sons and her husband. That's a lot. That's heavy, and that's a lot. So let's break it down. Let's first talk about the elephant in the room. The fact that these two sons married Moabite women. It says in Deuteronomy that they were not supposed to marry outside of Israel. But remember in I think it was verse 2, it said that they settled in Moab. And when they talked about settled there, we see it now, that they integrated themselves into this society and into this culture. They bought a house. They got comfortable. The sons married women from Moab. But there's also a blessing here. We don't know which son married who, but we know the names of the women. So if you can guess which woman is going to help bring blessing to Naomi, it's going to be Ruth. And Ruth means friend. Orpah, on the other hand, means neck or back of neck. And that's foreshadowing of what's coming. But let's talk about this. Let's stay in these two verses. So we have the two sons who married Ruth and Orpah. Married friend and back of neck. Unfortunately, 10 years after they got married, the men died. So now Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah not only don't have Elimelech, but they don't have Milion and Kilion. And that's a lot back then. There's nothing worse in this ancient culture than to be a widower. Because like I keep saying, women weren't allowed to own property. Women weren't allowed to own anything. So they were destined for a life of destitute. And that's scary. Talk about a famine. They went from a place where there was a physical famine, where there was no food, to a place now that looked nice, that looked great because there was food there. But now Naomi is faced with a worse outcome. Now Naomi is faced with not having either her sons or her husband who can take care of them, who can provide for them. Now they're completely alone. And the verses point that out specifically. Naomi is alone. It doesn't say Ruth and Orpah are alone. It says Naomi was left alone. Why? Why does it say Naomi? Why doesn't it say all three of the women? Well, here's the thing is that it's showing us just how desperate Naomi seems and feels. Is she truly alone? No, because we're going to see that God is there. God is about to bless her, but she doesn't see it. She sees it as if she is alone, all by herself. And the truth of the matter is she is. Now, like I said, I don't know what it feels like to lose a child. And I'm sorry for all of those who have lost children, but I know what it feels like to be alone. I think we all do. We all know what it feels like when the enemy makes us feel like we're isolated on an island somewhere all by ourselves. And that I can understand. I'm a single mom. You guys know that. And sometimes, oh man, sometimes I feel all alone. Sometimes I feel like there is no one there. And that's not the truth, but that's how I feel. Naomi feels all alone. The truth is, we're going to see that she is not alone. But she feels it because everything she was taught, everything she was told, everything that she grew up knowing was that if you don't have a husband, if you don't have male heirs, male sons, that's it, you're done. You're over. And that's not the truth. And here's the thing about God. Even if society says one thing, God says a totally different thing. And he will flip the script. He will say, not right now. That's not the truth. But he doesn't say that here. He lets us know how Naomi is feeling. And this must have been so hard for her. Like I said, I know how it feels to be alone. I know how it feels to have the weight of the world on your shoulders and feeling like there's nothing you can do. And I can only assume that that's how Naomi feels right now. Because there was this celebration. There was this marriage, whether it was what God wanted or not. They got married. So there must have been celebration and a party, and it must have looked really nice on the outside. But on the inside, when they chose to go the way of going to Moab, sorry, I'm a little sick. When they go to Moab and they sit and they settle and they become a part of it, that is when they're not making the right choices. But God can take the wrong choice. God can take a moment where you're not making the right choice, and he can use that moment. He can redeem that moment. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see that God can redeem it and is going to redeem it. And that's the hope here. I said in the beginning that we are going to see God's love for us throughout this entire book. Every word, every verse, we can see it. And even in this moment where it's tragedy after tragedy. First she loses her husband, then she loses her sons. God's love is still there. And if you're sitting there looking at me going, you're crazy, because right now Naomi is all alone. Naomi has no way to take care of herself. Naomi has no way of providing for herself. How is this God's love? I get it. I fully understand. And I'm going to attempt to answer that question. The reason we see God's love here is because of Ruth. Ruth is there. Orpah is there. Ruth means friend. Naomi's friend. If you put Naomi's name and Ruth's name together, it becomes gentle friend. And we're going to see that God has placed Ruth in her life. And God does that for us. God places people in our lives. It doesn't take away the pain. People can't take away that from us. But we can lean on these people. We can say, I am scared. I am alone. And we can say, I need your help. And that's what we're going to see. So what do we see for God's love in this? Ruth. We see that even though Naomi feels alone, she's not actually alone. And yes, 100%, Ruth and Naomi and Orpah are facing hard times. Doesn't take away that. God doesn't take away that feeling of, I'm all alone. I have no one to provide for me. All of that. But yet she does. She has God on top of all of it. God is there to provide for her. And He will. And He does. Even in the midst of all of this, God knows. God knows the future. And sometimes we want to know the future. We want to know what's going on because we want to make sure that we're okay. But what we have to realize is that even when we don't know, God knows. And it's okay for us to question. It's okay for us to say, I feel like this. I feel alone. But God has never left our side. God didn't leave Naomi just because they went to Moab. God doesn't want them to be there. God doesn't want us to do certain things, but He doesn't leave our side. He doesn't condone it. He doesn't say, oh, well, it's okay. No, He doesn't condone it, but He gives us grace. And He knows we're not perfect. He knew that Elimelech was going to choose to go to Moab. He knew what was headed for them. So He placed this Moabite woman, these Moabite women, in Naomi's life. And that's what we're going to see. And we're going to see what God does in the midst of all of this. We don't know who married who. We don't know what son married what woman. But that doesn't seem to be the important part of all of this. Because they would have mentioned it. They mentioned sons by name when they said they died. But they didn't mention the sons by name and who married who. Because God's showing the blessing already. God is showing who He's surrounding Naomi with. And that's the important part. That's the part that we need to see. Yes, there is tragedy. Yes, there is this trial, this pain, this hardship. Yes, there is all that. But there is also people who are surrounding Naomi, people who are there. And God has strategically put them in her life. So today, I want you guys, when you're feeling alone and isolated, when you're feeling like everything is just on you, and I've got to remind myself of this too. When you feel like everything is on you, remember, there's a God who can carry it as long as we give it to Him. There's a God who strategically does things and puts things in our lives that we are not alone. Right now, my kids are asleep. My house is quiet. There's no hustle and bustle. There's no people talking other than me. Some days when this happens, I feel like there's no one behind the doors. I feel like that's it. I'm by myself. Even when I'm surrounded sometimes with a whole bunch of people, I feel completely alone because I feel like no one understands. And as humans, we want so desperately for someone to understand what we're going through. Naomi wants so desperately for someone to understand that the Bible literally says she felt alone. But we do have someone who understands. We do have someone who understands the pain that we're going through, the isolation that we feel. Jesus understands all of it. He was isolated. He was mocked. He was beaten and abused. He felt lost. God lost his son. God sacrificed his son. Today is Good Friday. Today is Good Friday, and today is the day that we look at and say, this is the day that Jesus got nailed to the cross. That's heavy. That is really heavy. The fact that our Savior today got mocked, beaten. No one was there to take it. No one was there to protect him. He took it, and that is heavy. But don't forget what happened on Sunday. Don't forget what happened on Sunday. And I repeated that twice because I want you to know Jesus rose again. There it is. Jesus rose again. He is alive in heaven. Yes, it's hard. It's heavy. Our trials and tragedies are heavy. But there is a blessing. We have a Savior who knows and understands and who was there and who felt the very pain that we're feeling. No matter what we're going through, he understands, and he is standing right next to us saying, I love you, my child. Do not feel alone. But he's not judging us. He's not judging us and saying, oh, I don't understand why you feel alone. I'm right here. No, he's saying, trust in me. Come to me. Lay your head on me. Give me your loneliness. Give me your pain. Give me your suffering. Give me all that. Because in those moments, that is when we can call on him. Naomi is not alone. Yes, Naomi and Ruth and Orpah are facing a very uncertain future. Very, very uncertain. I think we're facing very, very uncertain futures. No matter what we're going through, no matter what our economic status or anything like that, we are always facing an uncertain future. But we're not alone. We're not alone in that, and we can call on him and say, I don't understand. I need you here. I need your help. He doesn't judge us. Because remember, Jesus wasn't sent to judge the world, but to save it. That's John 3:17. John 3:16 is God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Whoever believed in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Our Savior died today. He was crucified. He died. He gave his very last breath. And that is a tragedy. The sky darkened. But the curtain ripped in the temple, giving us the chance to be near God. Not only did that happen, that blessing in that moment happened, but 3 days later, Jesus rose again, defeated sin, and defeated the grave. What I'm saying is, put your trust in him. Put your tragedy and your pain, give it to him. It's not easy. It's easier said than done. I understand that. Cry out to him. Say, I don't understand, but I feel alone. Even if, just like Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah, there's a very uncertain future. I don't know my future. I think I do. The enemy's in my head telling me what it's going to be, but only God knows. But I know that he's got me. And even in the times where I just feel so isolated and so alone and so by myself, I feel like there's no one who understands. I need to remember and I need to explain to myself that, hey, I'm not alone. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for walking through this book with me, and thank you for being here every single morning. Well, as I keep saying, today is Good Friday. Today is a day of mourning. But in 3 days, 3 days, on Sunday, Jesus will rise again. That's our blessing. So I hope you guys have a great day today, and I hope you see God all around you. And I hope that in the moments of struggling and tragedy, you give it to God. Even if it's so difficult to do. To say, here, take it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And even if the moment happens and you still try to take it on yourself, give yourself grace, because he gives us grace. We're not perfect. He knows that. And he knows that we need him more than anything. So have a great day, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow.